I lost that $100 million business at 53 years of age. It's just money. As long as I'm breathing, I'll figure out a way to make money. If I want something, I have to go get it.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Salem Speakers Podcast. Today's guest has spent more than 4 decades helping people solve problems, make better decisions, and create opportunities in both business and in life. Bruce Weinstein, known by many as the Plan Man, has built and managed a $100 million financial planning practice. He's advised thousands of individuals and families and developed what he calls the proactive framework, a system designed to help people stop reacting to life and start intentionally creating better outcomes. He's the host of the Ask the Plan Man podcast and the author of the upcoming book, Solving for X, The Retirement Equation Nobody Taught You. Bruce, welcome to the show, my friend.
I'm backwards. I'm trying to point to the book. Thank you. Great to be here, Jacob. Hello, everybody.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So let's start with a question that has fascinated me as I'm looking through kind of your background of accolades and the things that you've accomplished. After working with successful people for over 40 years, what separates those who consistently create opportunities for themselves versus those who sit back and wait for them?
Well, I think that answers it clearly in the proactive method. I'm a very big fan of needing to know what I don't know. Any good executive, any good business person knows what their strengths are and seeks help for their blind spots and their vulnerabilities. So when it comes to the world of financial planning, there's a lot of things people don't know about investments, finance, and insurance. And I've spent 40 years, September will be ending my 40th year and beginning my 41st year as a financial services professional. It goes back to that old E.F. Hutton commercial. For those of you probably don't remember, but E.F. Hutton used to say, "How did your advisor know blank, blank, blank?" And the response is, well, he asked. So I ask, and I'm very proactive. I have my framework. I have my understanding. But if you're trying to get from A to Z, what's in the way? What do we need to know about? And how can we proactively manage the risk, the timelines, the investment profiles? All of that goes into this big pot of stew. And now for me, and these are one of my lines, Jacob, is I have nothing to sell, just problems to solve. Yeah. I'm not a hard salesman, never have been, never want to be. I'm a problem solver. So when you sit down with me, we're going to identify your SWOT, your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we're going to discuss proactively what you can do to address each of these areas, either to improve them or eliminate them or overcome them.
No, that's awesome, my friend. You often talk about, what it is to become a rainmaker. Now, I've heard the term before, and maybe our listeners have too, but what exactly is a rainmaker?
So this is something I give a talk on for sales professionals, certainly insurance and financial professionals being my wheelhouse, but I have been self-employed. Now, you could define self-employment in different ways, but I have always had to shoot what I want to eat. Even though I might have worked with a big firm like Merrill Lynch and I technically was a W-2 person, Merrill Lynch never paid me a penny unless I generated the revenue. So at 23 years of age, in the professional setting, certainly when I was 5 having a lemonade stand and 10 having a paper route and 12 cutting grass and shoveling snow, I've always been a hustler. I didn't have a lot of money as a kid. I had to go get it. So early on, the rainmaker point of view and attitude was, if I want something, I have to go get it. And so in the world of sales, you're a sales professional, you have sales experience, you run sales teams, you have an organization. What are they doing? They're seeking clients. They're trying to find new business. And so any insurance, financial professional, anybody that's in sales and has a business, especially self-employed, needs what? They need leads. They need opportunities to help people. And so over my years, I've built businesses, I've lost businesses, I've had to recreate businesses. I fall back on what were my skills, whether learned or innate. I had skill. And so I talk about that. And, one of the things I talk about is being an octopus, or if you think of a TP the Indian teepee, and they have their stakes in the ground. You never see one stake for a teepee. There's 6 or 8 of them. It has to hold and manifest stability. And the same thing here, being an octopus is what? It's 8 legs of this creature. So I consider myself an octopus. I have to do multiple things. Every sales professional needs to do multiple things. And so I try and teach the skills on that, developing a referral based network, strategic partners, alliances. There's so many different things besides joining BNI and LaTip and a chamber. So for me, when I've started my new business now in our 6th year, I went back to my skills, which is networking, shaking hands, meeting people, interacting, finding alliances, finding strategic partners. You being one of them, right? Like, finding you and you helping us develop other skills that I wasn't privy to in the world of social media, right? That's another leg of the octopus, another stake in the teepee is how can I use Facebook and social media? You taught me that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I've loved working with you over the years too. What do you think rainmakers understand of all these things that most people miss? I mean, you touched on it some, but do you think this concept of being a rainmaker, do you think we're just born with this, or are some of these skills that you're talking about, are they developed?
Well, I think both with an accept, with an asterisk. So if you think about accountants and attorneys, they're very book learned people in general. I'm not generalizing all of them. Some of them have different skills. And I've met financial professionals that are very book smart, but they don't have the communication skills. They don't have the personality to interact. They're the ones that sit behind the desk and crank out the numbers.
Yeah.
I'm the one that's in front of the client. I have that personality and that skill set to be able to convey, to educate, to answer questions, with the wealth of knowledge that I've developed over the years, tools in a toolbox, right? So when you talk to an accountant, I'm always trying to network with accountants and attorneys because they're good referral partners, they're trusted advisors. My clients need them, and hopefully their clients need me. Getting them involved in, let's say, a networking group, they're always going to send an underling. The partner's never going to go because they're too established. The problem with these underlings is what? They don't have the skill sets, the communication skills, the networking skills. They pass their CPA exam, they pass the bar. There's a lot of knowledge, but are they good at developing business? And the stronger partners in law firms and accounting firms are the ones that bring in the business. Most managing partners are the rainmakers for those companies, and they're highly compensated, right? So, your question of, what separates or what makes somebody the rainmaker, I think everybody can learn certain skills. You can take the Dale Carnegie classes. You can follow Zig Ziglar. We can always sharpen our tools. There's the movie Glengarry Glen Ross, and there's signs up there that says what? Salesmen are born, not made. So
Yeah.
we all have a certain skill. You had certain skills you were given and gifted with by God, and you've leaned into it, and so have I. I don't want to dig ditches. I don't want to sit here and program a computer. There's a lot of things that are just not for me, right? So I lean into my skills. And I mean, it took years. I mean, it wasn't like I just woke up and said, that's me. I had to figure it out. But yeah, the backstory in some of this is when I first tried to get into being a financial advisor, okay, 1986, many years ago. I had a contact, got an interview, and Jacob, they sent me home with an inch thick workbook of questions
Hmm.
and a number 2 pencil and fill in the answers. And it was all these sales related questions. Would you rather go to an art museum or would you rather blah, blah, blah? And at 22 years of age, I wasn't thinking answer them like a salesperson. I was just answering them in a normal 22-year-old voice.
Right.
And they got the results and they said, go sell cars for 6 months. You have no sales experience and background, and come see us in 6 months. And I was totally dejected. I said, just give me a phone, give me a desk. You don't have to pay me anything. Just give me a phone, right? Let me work. No, we don't do that. Fast forward a week later, I take my resume, I drive into downtown Princeton, New Jersey, and I walk down the street looking for brokerage firms. And one of my stops is Merrill Lynch. Manager comes out right away. He's what? He's impressed that I cold door knocked and just walked in the door, right? So right away, got his attention. I had the gumption to just walk in the door and ask. Sits down, interviews me, likes me, relates to me, picks up the phone, calls New York City. Next thing I know, I'm being scheduled for what's called a simulation. Merrill Lynch's hiring process was putting me in a 3 hour simulation playing stockbroker. Now, I had no clue what a stockbroker did. I had a phone, I had a desk, I had a pile of papers. I was Mr. Brown. I had a
Okay.
brown ribbon and a brown marker. Somebody would come by and just stop at my desk, and I had to engage them. They would run a, we're got a special on stock XYZ, and it's going to pay this commission, and we're recommending it. And you had a list of people, and I had to pick up the phone and dial number two, and you're on the back room, and you're number two. And I would pitch it, and you'd say, give me 500 shares. And then you call the next person, and they'd say, give me 200 shares, and they want to see how your pitch was.
That's
Within
cool.
5 minutes, people were leaving that simulation, and I was thriving. I'm like, this is what a stockbroker does.
Yeah.
And I got hired. But look at the difference in the two strategies these companies did in their hiring.
Yeah.
One's just automated, no interaction, fill out a form, and the others put me in the hot seat, and I thrived. Right.
That's
So
awesome.
where does that come from? I didn't prepare for it. I had no idea what I was walking in the door for. It was innate. And so, that's your innate sales skills and abilities. And then eventually over time, I would listen to books on tape, the Zig Ziglars and the Brian Tracy's and the Earl Nightingale Conan Company stuff, and just learned and listened and molded my repertoire, my language, to what I was being taught by them. But I was blessed to be gifted.
That's awesome. One thing I love about your story, about your message was one, that's a powerful story that I had never heard. And so
Yeah.
thank you for sharing it. But one thing I love about your story and your message is that you focus so much on creating the opportunities, right? You went looking for the opportunities. You walked into the building. You kind of took life by the horns, rather than waiting for an opportunity to come to you. And it's okay if you don't know the answer to this one, but why do you think so many people spend their lives just waiting for a door to open rather than just chasing what they actually want?
I know you're a godly man,
Yep.
so I'll say it in these terms: is God bestowed different gifts on different people,
Okay.
and I view myself at a fairly young age. I'm the shepherd. Not everybody's meant to be a shepherd. Not everybody's meant to be a leader. My clients were my flock, and my flock needed guidance and leadership. I was the kid. You remember Reggie Jackson,
Yeah.
baseball player?
Yeah. Yeah.
Reggie Jackson came to the Yankees. There was a big uproar. He declared himself the straw that stirred the drink,
Okay.
meaning he's the man in New York. Nobody else on the team was the man. He was the man, and it caused an uproar with the Thurman Munsons and the other leaders of the team, right? But Reggie's ego and his brashness, I'm the straw that stirs the drink. So I look back, if I'm in high school or when I was in high school and we're 15, 16, not driving, if we wanted to go out, my friends didn't call me. I always called them. What do you guys want to do? Where we go? Like, I've always been that leader. I did it with my fraternity over the
Yeah.
years. I was the social director. 40 years after college, I still run the fraternity golf outing. We have a fraternity cruise. I control the email list and distributions. Like, I'm still the straw that stirs the drink. And
Yeah.
I've done it since high school. So it's just, again, part of this evolution in my business practices was you want to have it, you got to go make it happen. I come from a divorced home. My dad left when I was 8. My mother raised us pretty much on her own. My dad was a half a day Saturday dad. So I did not have a lot of fatherly influence, but my mother was a strong business head, business minded person. And so, I learned certain things there, and certain things were expected of me. I had a strong, domineering Jewish mother. Expectations were defined and expected and demanded. And so I had to carve my way. We did not have the finances being in a divorced home. My mother worked. My father gave some money, but we were lower middle class. And I mentioned before, like, I remember having a lemonade stand on the corner for 5 cents, and I was literally in kindergarten, 5, 6 years old. And when I was old enough, I got a paper route. And then it snowed, we'd grab our shovels, and I had to do my own driveway first. But then I can go make all the money I want, work the neighborhood. right?
Yeah.
And then I was about 13 or 14 and I had a lawn mowing business. And I would ride my bike, pulling my lawnmower behind me across the neighborhoods in the community and run ads in the papers. And my mother would drive me over to them and I would quote them. It's always been a hustle, right? It's always been a grind. I'm a grinder.
Yeah. One of my mentors taught me, this was probably 12 years ago, that there's three types of motivation that at least I'm familiar with. You have the carrot and the stick, right? So you got the carrot in front of the donkey, so that the way the donkey will walk and move to chase the carrot. Well, when it's the carrot and the stick, eventually the donkey gets full and it stops chasing it. You have the do it or you're fired. There's the fear motivation where it's
Right.
like, I have to do this thing or I'm going to get fired and I don't want that to happen, or the negative thing is going to happen. So you're chasing good, you're avoiding the pain or the fear. And then you also have this concept that clearly you were born with, where you have the motivation that's innate. It's just within us, where we don't need the alarm clock or the opportunity clock, as Zig Ziglar would call it. We don't need that to be our motivation in life, because we're ready to hit the ground running, to chase and create opportunities in our life. Now, you have chased a lot of opportunities. You've been successful, as you mentioned, in your current business. Do you have any kind of framework, any kind of logic you go through when you're trying to identify opportunities that you might want to chase or might not want to chase?
I'm highly confident in my decision making and my assessment of things. When I'm in the store and I'm looking for a tie, there's 1,000 ties. I'm not buying 1,000 ties. When
Yeah.
I see the one that sparks me, I have confidence that tie's for me, right? And I know
Yeah.
what it's not. So I've been very good in that regard of assessing whether it's software or a partnership or whatever it is in buying things or using and working with partners. Is I'm a good judge of character. I'm probably to a flaw too trustworthy. I've definitely been burned in relationships because I'm a giver first and I expect that it will work my
Right.
way and they take advantage, or it just doesn't work out. I think I have a good sense of business overall. I'm not as defined with written goals and got to do this, and at my advanced age it's kind of like I know what I want and I just keep pursuing it. And I want to give you a backstory. Somebody called me or said to me the other day, is you're forged from fire,
Hmm.
right? That steel, that metal, that the ability to pursue and overcome. And I think to your point of like, how do you know? So let me share a little bit, which I think you and I've talked about privately, but for the listener. So I mentioned being raised by a single mother.
Yep.
My mother passed away from cancer at 45 years of age. I was 22. Okay. Now, you mentioned the book. Thank you for mentioning the book. At the beginning of the book, and if you ever watch my story of origin on my website or my podcasts, my mother lived on what I refer to as someday I'll.
Hmm.
Meaning, she always said, someday I'll do this and someday I'll do that.
Yeah.
Once you and your brother are out of the house, I'll get to travel and I'll get to do these things. And cancer robbed her of getting to someday I'll. And so I talk about it in the book, and the solving for X, the retirement equation, is to help people determine that proactivity, that what do you need to do? What are my blind spots? The whole financial planning process and how I've lived and served my clients is to help them do and get to their someday I'll, because none of us have an unlimited clock. And you don't know when your time's going to be up. And what are you working towards? And why is that age the age you've determined? So when people say, I'm going to retire at 65, why?
Yeah.
Well, that's when Social Security kicked in for most people, right? They worked at Ford, they worked at GM, they had a grinding job, they were miserable, and they just waited for the day that they could punch that clock and retire. And all their benefits came in. Well, you're an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur. Maybe you don't want to work till 65 and you don't need to wait for Social Security.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to retire at 50. What's that journey look like? What's your someday Isle? What's your Woody Woofy? What do you want for yourself? And how do we translate that on paper using the software of financial planning calculations, where we're looking at your savings, we're looking at your investing, we're looking at your timelines? How does all that come together proactively? And what do you need to do differently now to make sure you get there?
Yeah.
That's the counseling. That's what I do with people. So the someday I'll the metaphor of really at 23 years of age when I got into the industry was everybody to me was that potential loss of life mother that I wanted to make sure they could retire sooner versus later and
Yeah.
be comfortable and confident that they never have to step into Walmart or Costco and say, how may I help you today? And they're collecting carts at 75 years of age, right? Because they're broke.
Time is the number one asset that we will never get back, and we don't know
Yeah.
when our time is going to be up.
That was A, right? The Forged from Fire, dealing with my mother, setting that course. So now let's talk about phase two of my life where I lost that $100 million business at
Mm,
53 years of age.
yeah.
Okay. And found myself on Friday, May 13th, 2016, with that phone call from my attorney that was pretty much ending that 30-year career.
Mm,
Okay. And we don't have to get into the messy details, but I wear it. I talk about it in the book. Okay. So I have to go home, tell my wife, Robin, lawyer called. This is the final nail in the coffin. We're done. Everything we've done for 30 years is pretty much going to be over with. Okay. I go to bed that night. It's not a very well slept night, not a lot of rest. She's up early, and I'm kind of awakened with my phone ringing. It's a friend of mine from high school asking me if I heard from another friend from high school that Adam, his daughter, is on spring break, stepped off the curb, and got hit by an SUV. And my friend Chris is Adam's on his way to Maryland, and they don't know if his daughter's going to make it. I'll
mm,
keep you posted. That's pretty horrific news to wake up to. And I
yeah.
had a pretty horrific day the day before. Okay. I walked downstairs with my phone in my hand. Robin's making coffee. I said, Chris just called, blah, 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 blah. And I said these words, Jacob. Do you think Adam would trade places with us? We're losing everything financially. We're wind up filing bankruptcy. We lost our house. We pretty much lost our assets. I lost my ability to earn my income. I had to reinvent myself. And I had no idea how I was going to do that. I spent the next year driving Uber in a soon to be repossessed Jaguar.
Yeah.
Okay. But when you talk about the forged from fire and the metal and the gumption and my whatever I was gifted by the Lord, where did that come from? To say to Robin, it's just money. As long as I'm breathing, I'll figure out a way to make money.
That's right.
We're healthy. Our kids are healthy. Now, his daughter survived. Fast forward that story. She did not pass away. She's doing fine 10 years later. Okay. So I always like to make sure people know that.
Yeah.
But in that moment, my children were healthy and I was not running to a hospital wondering if my kid's going to survive the weekend.
Right.
But I was suffering much more financial devastation than most people deal with. And I literally brushed it off
Yeah.
based on that. I was gifted that phone call to put my life in perspective. And I just moved on, bro. I just moved on.
From where you were then to where you are now, what would you say has changed in your definition of success?
I was robbed of the gift and the ability to do what I did by what happened in 2016. And I literally spent 4 years dabbling around, trying to reinvent myself and to figure out what's next. And then COVID came around. And again, by serendipity, somebody I had met introduced me to the concept of getting involved in the health insurance space, which launched us to restart this insurance business. And I say this because I used to sell insurance. My main business was investments. I didn't do health insurance. I didn't do Medicare back then. I referred it out. We didn't have the infrastructure. When I lost my ability to manage people's money and do financial planning, I ran away from the industry. I denied being any of me. And what I realized in the epiphany, I had a phone call with a referral that had called. I was no longer licensed, and they were a neighbor of a former client. And I said to him point blank, Jacob, I can't do the investments like I did for so and so, but I can help you figure out what you need to do. If there's insurance work, I can help you. I can bring in somebody to help with the investments if you'd like. And I had my epiphany. I was denying being any of me because I couldn't be all of me. And I realized I'd rather be some of me than none of me. And I was denying being me.
Yeah.
And so I leaned into what can I do in my world, which is the world of insurance and finance. And as I just said, and now partner with friends of mine that are CFP, certified financial planners and asset managers. I know dozens and dozens from my years, hundreds. And now, if I want to continue to do that work, I just say, Jacob, I'm going to handle this. Is it okay if I bring in Andrew? If it's okay if I bring in Pete, can I bring in Ann? And now you're going to get a two-headed monster instead of one, and you're going to get
Yeah.
my 40 years and their 30 years, and it's even better for you.
Yeah.
And so to your success question, I was reborn after that epiphany, meaning I was the cancer person that rang the bell when they were cured. I was the drowning person finally getting oxygen. I was reborn in my purpose. And that's my success. The money will follow. I love what I do. I love helping people. The world of insurance, as much as people don't understand investments, insurance is even worse
Yeah.
because having money, you usually have a certain acumen. Obviously, dumb people step into money too, but if you have 50, 500, a million, $5 million, you might have some head and on your shoulders, right?
Yeah.
But you could be on food stamps and need health insurance, right?
Yeah.
So the clientele might be different and not as educated as I might have dealt with, which is even more empowering because they know even less.
Yeah.
And so my servitude has always been, and the reward comes if you enjoy what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a work and it's grind and I do things, but I love doing this. I love spreading my message. I love having my podcast and educating people. There's no commercials, there's no products, it's pure education. The
Nice.
book I'm building with the workbook is self-help.
Yeah.
It's everything I've done and compiled in my brain to leave a legacy behind between the podcast and the book so that when I'm pushing Daisy someday, my message, and it's my message, it's not everybody's message, and my approach can be replicated and shared and live on. And that to me, that's all success, right? It's all success. Am I monetarily where I was? No, sir, I am not. Am I close to getting back there? Yes, I am on that path and I will get back there. But I've lost 10 years and I lost everything I had at 53 to now have to catch up. But
Yeah.
I got a plan and I'm working my plan your work and work your plan,
That's
right?
right.
And so I'm doing the things I need to do and I'm always expanding and I just got back from a conference in Denver and I got 8 people to help me potentially grow my business
That's
and I have
awesome.
consults with them and reconnecting with you. So, success is what you want it to be and not everything's a fit. I know what shoe size I wear, but based on the manufacturer, sometimes it's 11, sometimes it's a 12. Like so just because I say I wear a 12, well, not every brand's going to be I need 11, right?
Yeah.
So you have to adjust, you have to modify, you have to try your shoe on and see what fits. And if you're going to get into sales and get into a business, don't get dejected. You might start on one path selling one product and find a different product is better suited for you,
Yeah.
right? So, don't give up on yourself. There's always another door that you can open.
Well, I love that. I love that, my friend. And most importantly, I want to say I love you, my friend, and I'm so grateful that you came on to the podcast today to deliver value for our listeners. One thing that really stood out in today's conversation for me is that opportunities rarely appear by accident. The people who achieve extraordinary things aren't simply lucky, they're intentional. As you said, they build relationships, they
Yeah.
prepare, they take ownership, they create opportunities long before anyone else sees them. And so for everyone listening or watching today, your future is not something that happens to you. It's something that you build one relationship, one decision, one action at a time, just like Bruce has done. Bruce, if someone today is listening or watching and they want to look you up, they want to connect with you, they want to do business with you, where is the best place for somebody to go learn more about you and to connect with you personally?
Well, I'd love anybody and everybody to follow the podcast. Ask the Plan Man. You can go to planman.tv or just go to YouTube, Ask the Plan Man. But we're on 38 audio channels as well as YouTube. Our phone number is 844 Plan Man, and our website is Plan Man Insurance. but you could also type in Ask the Plan Man and it'll take you to that website as well. So pretty much have everything branded around the Plan Man. And to your point you just said a moment ago, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. If
Absolutely.
you're receptive and you're open-minded, opportunities will present itself to you whether you're looking or not. And then those doors can be opened and you knock on them and open it up and you see where it takes you and you'll find your path. And that's what I hope everybody in the world can do is find their path and be happy, have a happy, healthy, joyous life, bountiful, make some money, retire as early as possible, and get to your someday isle.
That's right. Well, thank you, my friend. Thank you for being here. That's very powerful. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of the Salem Speakers Podcast. We'll see you next time.